Okay, and welcome to the assembly instructions for the Hypercube. I'm assuming now that you have your template printed, cut, and scored. This is an example of what your template would look like. Here there are darker lines. Your template should be a lighter gray. I did that on purpose so that you don't see these lines as much when you print them and cut them. So they're very faint. These will come in three pages. The first is the base, then you have the tops, and then you have the columns. And we'll go ahead and cut these out and score these. It's very important that they're scored properly so that the folding can be a lot easier. Here's a cut piece already, and I scored down the lines where all the tabs are and all these verticals. The last page on your instructions actually has the fold lines, the fold instructions where it's color coded. So the red will be what's called a mountain fold. It folds back like this on that line, so that it forms a peak, almost like a mountain. So you see it like this. And then the blue lines, which is usually the tabs, is called a valley fold. It folds up like this, and then it receives the tab on the other side. It'll be a little bit more clear once we get that. But just know that page 4 shows you how to fold all the different lines. And then we're gonna get started and cutting all these out and actually assembling. Okay, now that you have all your pieces cut and scored, I'm gonna start with the base. And these 4 pieces, they're all the same. You'll notice that 2 sides have flaps, 2 tabs have on the long side have tabs on this side, and 1 side has just 1 tab. It's very important that they're going to orient. But first, let's fold one. Let's fold the tabs to see how it goes, and they're all going to fold it the same way. I like to start with the valley folds first because they're a little more difficult to get in the way. And what I like to use is a small cutting mat. In this case like this, I have elevated with like a small box on here, so it provides a nice elevated edge on this side. But you could use the side of a table or a desk as long as it's nice and straight. That'll work as well. What I like to do to make my life a lot easier is I use a small metal ruler, and I bring that edge where I need to fold back on the score line. I bring the ruler right up to that line, just before that line, and I hold down with my fingers like this, and then with my thumbs, I bring the fold up. And so what that does is that it folds usually in the straight line as possible. The ruler is using as a guide so that I could fold, and I could rub my thumb along that edge a bit, and you can see that it'll provide a nice clean fold like this. You'll see that that is a valley fold, and I continue doing the folds up on each side. These small ones, I just use my thumb once. And then I go ahead and I'm gonna do this longer side. I'm gonna make sure my ruler's right up against that edge. And I use both thumbs to try to bring up that piece simultaneously, just so that I get a nice clean folded edge on that one. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this one up like this again. Bring it up. And then I'm gonna do these 2 on this side. Fold up the edge like this, and the small other piece here. Okay, and this means I have all my valley folds done. And then for the mountain folds, I'm going to use where the red lines are in your diagram. I'm just going to fold the paper back, and you see that it folds back really easily. That's the importance of having a good score. It makes the paper, the cardstock in this case, bend back nicely. Since it is cardstock, it's a lot harder to fold. It's not like paper. And so this provides a really nice backdrop for folding. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna fold all the other 4 pieces. They're all gonna look the same. All these tabs are gonna be folded up, and then all the straight lines in the back are gonna be folded down, essentially. These are valley folds and mountain folds. Once we finish folding all these, I'll show you how we're gonna start doing it up together. Okay, now that we have all our pieces folded, we want to make sure that these base pieces have a certain orientation so that they get glued correctly. One, you got to make sure that all pieces have just one side that doesn't have a flap here. That is very important to make sure that it's always on the bottom when you're gluing, and that the other piece you're going to glue to it is the side that has the 2 flaps. So it's always going to glue side no edge, no flap, bottom, always glues with a side that has 2 edges. And if you glue it like that, you're gonna, build the base correctly. All right, so we're gonna start gluing. I happen to have my glue in this little applicator. You could get these at a craft store. They're really inexpensive. It's like $2 for, I think, a 2-pack of these. And I like it because I get more control over where I put the glue, and I could put very little amounts. Now with some bottles that come with the PVA glue, just their tips are too big, and so it's putting too much glue everywhere. You want to put very light amount of glue on this edge, because if not, the paper could buckle, and you don't want it to do that. Also, the more glue you put, especially PVA glue, it's going to take a lot longer to dry out. So very little glue keeps the paper almost very tacky, and it makes for a faster dry out, and it keeps it clean. So again, I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this edge. I more or less know how much the distance for the flap. So I'm going to just put, you're going to see a very tiny little line, and I like this metal applicator because the tip allows me to push the glue around a little bit, so that's why I'm squiggling it. You see me moving it around like this. And that should be enough glue. I'm going to then grab my piece, and I'm going to push on the edge all the way to that fold. On the bottom, I have 2 fingers that are holding the piece on this side, and on the top, I place my 2 fingers over on this side as well. And so that just keeps like a nice firm pressure all over that fold, and it puts pressure all along the fold. I don't just have like one piece, like one here, because then the corners can be lifted. So I use my 2 fingers to go ahead and get as much contact as possible. And since I used not that much glue, this should be almost ready. And it's regular, PVA, like school glue. It's not a fancy glue or anything like that, but using cardstock and using that glue in very little amounts, it makes it really tacky kind of fast. So you can see I'm ready to go. Some people use CA glue, like a crazy glue, and I like that. The only problem is that if you're not exact with how you put it, you could actually end up gluing and committing and making a mistake, and there's no going back with that one. So this one gives you slightly a bit more working time and allows you to go ahead and correct your piece in case it is not oriented properly. Now I'm going to get this small little tab here on this side, and I'm going to put, again, a little bit of glue. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to, on one side, put a finger, and on the other side, put my other finger. So then I'm pressing firmly here, and I'm making sure that the tab is making contact as much as possible with the other edge that we have on the base. And that pretty much should be about it. That's about as much time as you need. Now, the type of glue you buy, the brand might differ a little bit in the drying time, so always test and make sure, but you say it didn't take a whole lot. And that corner is nice and folded. And so that finishes one edge of the base. So we'll continue. And remember, I'm going to grab a piece. I'm going to make sure that the side that has no tab is facing the bottom, and it's going to glue to a side that has the 2 tabs. So this is the way it should face. And I like to position my piece first just to make sure it fits right. And it's almost like a muscle memory thing. If I do this first, I know that when I glue up, I mess up less. Sometimes when I don't do this first, and then I already put glue and I'm putting it in here and I'm trying to jostle it, it's almost like when you position the piece, your mind reminds itself in your short-term memory where it goes. I know it sounds weird, but once you'll get used to it, you'll see that positioning the piece, dry fitting it first, helps kind of making sure when you glue up, it goes a little bit smoother. At least it does for me. Let me know if it doesn't for you. Okay, and now that I've glued all 4 pieces of the base to each other, you're going to notice that it forms a square here with 4 flaps, and then you're going to have 4 open flaps on this side. The next step is to get each one of these and fold that flap onto its corresponding edge like this. So I'm going to grab my model, and I'm going to then put glue on an edge like this, and I'm going to grab the top, and I'm going to bring it in, and I'm going to make sure that both these corners are lined up and that edge lines up nicely, about as best as I can get it to fold up into that corner. That's going to be my next piece to glue, and I'm going to do that to all 4 corners. Okay, so this is the last piece that I have just glued down to the out of the 4, and my base now sits pretty straight, and it should have on each corner, it should have 4 flaps with facing upward. My next step is going to be to glue the columns. Okay, so now I'm gonna glue and I'm gonna make a column. I'm gonna fold it first, and this one's really easy. These are all mountain folds, so they all fold back, 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 and back. And so it just makes like a nice simple shape. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put glue on this tab, and I'm gonna glue the other edge over to the tab and just keep it there until it finishes setting up. Okay, now that we have our columns glued together, we're gonna start attaching them to the base. What we're gonna do is you're gonna grab your base and you're gonna do a couple of quick adjustments on the base. First, these small flaps that you see here, I wanna bend these back just so that they're already folded in a way that they can easily attach once we put the column. And then we're gonna just move them in so that you'll see why. We're gonna push them into the insides so they're out of the way. What we're gonna do is we're going to grab a column piece and we're gonna dry fit it. We're gonna put the bottom corner, you see it sideways, you're gonna put the bottom corner in first, and then you're going to align this edge and this edge with the point at the bottom first. So you're gonna put it in and you're going to push so that you get a nice crisp edge all along here, all along this side, right? And that should, I'll move it around just so you can see it. When you push them in, it's going to give you a nice, solid, sharp corner. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna put glue on both of these tabs. We're going to fit this piece in first, wait for that to dry, and then we're gonna do the 2 small tabs on the inside. So let's get started with that. And one of the reasons why we moved these tabs in is because if they're out and you glue this down and they're outside, getting them back in there is going to be really difficult. So you wanna make sure that they're inside the column, and then we'll worry about those after this has been glued. So let's grab a little bit of glue here. And we're gonna do glue on the other side. And then we're gonna grab our column. We're gonna make sure that the point is in registered first, and then we're gonna make sure that both sides are nice and edged up. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put pressure on both sides here. We're gonna, with the thumb on one side and with your index finger on the other, and you're gonna look through the inside right there, and you're gonna make sure that those tabs are making contact with the column. And then here, you're just gonna wait a little bit. Then what you could do is after they've made some contact, I have, like, this is a coffee stirrer, wooden coffee stirrer, but anything long like that, you could actually just put in there and just rub up against the tabs just to make sure they're making good contact. You're gonna use this in a bit too for the other little flaps. But you could use that. You could use something like a bamboo stick. This is just a barbecue skewer. Just something that you could just reach down in there. And what I'm doing is I'm using the length of this to rub up against, see if I get it on camera. Yeah, rub up against those 2 tabs just to make sure that they're glued. And right about now that they're glued, you're gonna see it's a nice sharp corner. And then what we're gonna do is, and the reason why you want those the popsicle skewers is you're going to now see those two little tabs down in there. What we're gonna do is we're gonna grab the skewer and we're gonna pull them back, one on one side and the other on the other. But we're gonna use the skewer to hold a little bit of glue. So what I'm gonna do is with this one, I'm gonna put a little bit of glue on the end. Just a bit, and this is gonna be for both sides. I'm gonna use that glue, I'm gonna go in there, and I'm gonna put it on both tabs. Just gonna rub the paper in there. So you can see it out at the angle. I use it to put glue on right where the tabs are. And then I push it further down, and then I fold back the little tab. Right now I'm holding the tab. See if I can get there in place. Making sure I get good contact. And they're both glued in. And so now what that does is it creates a strong joint along this little edge in there. Again, you won't see it, but it pulls the paper down and it'll keep your structure nice and tight. And what we'll do is we'll do the same thing for these other ones. We'll glue the tabs first, the two long tabs first. We will place our column, and then we'll worry about gluing the two little tabs on the inside, these two little guys on the inside afterwards, and we'll do that for all four corners. And now we're ready to put the top piece. And if you notice, the top pieces come in pairs. They say that top first and then top last. With the top first, these are gonna be cut and scored and folded, and what we're gonna do is they're gonna go opposite each other on our base. Here we have the base with the columns, and we're gonna start with the top first piece, and you're gonna notice the piece has this attaching flap, this extra little flap here at the bottom. Now they both have one on the top, one on the bottom, but the one that actually gets glue on, this little guy, this is gonna go on the bottom. So what we're gonna do first though, is we're gonna glue these diagonal pieces onto the column. We're gonna start with one, make sure it's set nice and properly. Then we're gonna glue the other one. We're gonna move all these pieces, all these flaps around so that everything lines up, and we're gonna glue this other one to this side. So we're gonna glue this one first, then this one, and then once those two are glued, we're going to glue the two little flaps, that one and that one on the inside. And the reason we do that is because it starts wrapping around and it starts aligning the cube. Because if you notice, there's some lines that are not straight. These flex a bit, and so they're kind of, they could be kind of crooked, they could be not as formed. And what they start doing is they start getting everything in proper, and they start squaring up the shape. And so once this one is glued in place, we're going to do the same for the opposite side. We're going to bring it in. Remember the piece that has this little flap here that goes in the bottom. We're going to glue the diagonals first, the ones that are attached to the columns, and then we're going to glue those two first, and then we're going to glue the two small flaps that square up this piece here. And so what I'll do is I'll dry fit. I'll grab this here and I'll make sure it goes in properly and everything looks good there. And I'll go ahead and grab some glue. I'll put the glue on the tab this time. Again, tiny amounts of glue, just so it holds. It's not a whole lot. And then I'll grab this and I'll make sure it's in good alignment. So again, I'll grab this and I'll just put it in place. I make sure I have good contact and that my corners are lined up. The corner that goes out here on the box and the corner that goes here in the middle. And if it gets a little tricky, I can have my finger on the other side and I have my small ruler and I press it up against that flat edge just to try to get even pressure all along that tab and making sure that it glues properly. Now these, I take my time a little bit. I don't try to rush these, because here you could have all that work put in already and then one thing that misaligns or something that's not properly glued, could skew your cube. So take your time, making sure, and then halfway through flip it, and you should see a nice clean edge like this one, right? It glued properly and it looks nice, right? So I'll let that dry just for a little bit more because I want to make sure I'm not messing with it. And then what we'll do is we're going to lift this flap up just so that we can get this piece over the column, because we're going to glue this column next, and we're going to make sure that everything can align properly. Here's the dry fit. I turn it around, looks good. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue this inside here a little bit. So I got a little bit of glue all the way to the point. I'm going to grab that flap. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to commit that edge on the inside. Again, I'm going to do a quick spot check on the other side, just make sure everything's aligned properly, looks good. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come in and I'm going to just press on the inside here, make sure everything aligns properly. I'm going to get good contact. Again, I could use my ruler. What's nice about that is that I'm spreading the pressure evenly and I'm pressing all along that flap just to make sure I get good contact. And it's looking good. You could see on this side, I got clean edges. Everything seems to be lining up properly. And I'm gonna let that, again, I'm gonna let that one settle in, and then I'm gonna glue these two little tabs down just so that you see this little play. It starts aligning that box and then that side on that side, and it starts tightening everything up a little bit. I'm gonna grab one. I'm gonna use my little skewer tool just to flip it back. I'm going to grab a small dab of glue. Here on this one, I'm gonna, now that it has glue, I'm just gonna make sure I get good contact on the column. So I'm kind of holding the thumb for this tab and the column, and I'm trying to square them up as much as possible. And then I'm gonna hold this right here with the glue. I usually roll it around. Just make sure I get good contact. And again, these could take a little bit longer, but it seems to be working. I don't want to let go just yet. I want to make sure I have good contact before I let go. The last thing I want is it to rip or the glue dry up without it being in there. And I have that one glued up, it's in place. And now for the other side. You see how when these glue in, you see that little play that's there? That's gonna help with aligning everything. So I'm gonna do the same for this side. I'm going to flip the tab back a bit so I can see it here. I'm gonna place a small dab of glue. Dab of glue. I'll go ahead and place a small dab right in there on that little flap. And once it's in there, I'm going to now turn this way. I'm going to pull on the column a little bit. I'm gonna push on the column a little bit, and I'm going to push this little tab in like this. And with this one, I'm gonna hold it on my finger just because it's convenient to have that little edge in there. And so what I'm doing is I'm making sure that that tab is making good contact against the column on the inside right there. Use that. I could use my tool. See that it popped up? I could use my skewer or my coffee stirrer or a pencil or anything you might have that is just extends and it makes it a little thinner in the front, so you don't have to put, I don't have to put my little grubby fingers in there. And that's it. And that one gets glued in place. Okay, so that now these two pieces have been dried, I'm going to now glue these edges down so that it forms the top part and it keeps it solid and rigid. So I'm going to glue this piece down here and I'm going to glue this piece down here. Now that's a little bit easier. I could put glue down here and I could look through the top here when I'm gluing so I could align. Keep that in mind. You don't have to look at it since this piece is a little hard. Just look through the hole here and you could go ahead and get yours aligned. So let's glue those two and then we'll finish with the last two pieces. Okay, now that these two pieces have been glued in, we're gonna go ahead and put the last two missing pieces as the top last, or label top last. Okay, so the order is gonna be, we're gonna glue these two tabs in first. Then we're gonna glue these two little tabs here that point down. We're gonna glue those into this piece. And then we're gonna glue these two small little tabs that are on the top two pieces. We're gonna glue them to this tab around here. And that'll start tightening everything up. So diagonal pieces, then two down pieces, and then these two pieces that wrap around. We'll do that now. Quick little note, if you're having trouble with a corner, so right now, the way that one was glued, I'm trying to fit this corner in right here. If I see that it doesn't go in all the way, what I could do is I could trim, because that's maybe it was just glued or there's another piece of paper that's there. I could just trim a tiny little bit, shave off of that corner just a little bit, and then it should fit a little better. So we'll go ahead and dry fit. That's the important, there we go, perfect. It's the important of dry fitting. So if you see something's not working right, you can make an adjustment before you put glue on it. And so that'll do it. And then we're gonna test this one, just because it'll be glued in. The other one will be glued in already. That one fits fine. That one doesn't have any issues. So let's put glue on this corner and let's put it in. All right, this corner is going to go in here. Let me make sure it looks good from that side. Okay, if it looks good there, then I'll push. Oops. Make sure it looks good from here. I'll get the tab. Now that it looks good from there, I'll try pushing with my finger as much as possible. If I'm having trouble doing that, I'll hold the piece down here and I'll get, again, my little ruler and I'll push all along that edge on the inside, making sure that tab makes good contact against the column. And you can use that. You could use your skewer. And then you're just making sure that it made a good solid line in that corner. I'm gonna let that dry for a second. And while I do that, I'll do this side as well, just so that I wanna make sure that that glue is nice and firm before I move on. Again, I dry fit this one. This one seems to have a little bit of issue, and it's usually that top. I will trim just a little bit off of that corner. Then I'll dry fit again. And now it's perfect. All right, so now I'll put glue on this. Okay, I'll bring it into this side. Making sure it's lined up properly. It looks good there, looks good there. I'll try to fold it in. If I don't make good full enough contact, I'll bring in my skewer and I'll just finish pushing that tab up against that edge of that column in there. Again, it's a little tight corner to get in there, but you get a nice clean corner here. And now as I let that one dry, I'm gonna come back and I'm going to put this one in. So make sure that this tab goes up and over, and then I'm going to dry fit this one in here. And I see that it makes good contact. Again, I try to make sure that this is aligned in there properly. There we go. And so there it makes better contact. I have that edge making good contact there. So I bring it out. I don't move it too far because it's already there. And I put glue on that little tab. And once I have enough glue, I slide that back in there and I try to make contact again through the back with my finger. And now that I see that I have good contact there, I will grab, see, lift it up. So now I will try to make sure I have good contact. There we go. And I'll get my skewer really quick and I'll go back here and I'll just push along that side. Make sure that nothing gets up. Okay, and now that these diagonals have been glued in, I'm now going to do the work in the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this tab right here, this little tab right here is going to go down, and this little tab are going to come in, and we're going to do that all along the edges. We're going to have this one here, and this tab, this small little tab here, this one's going to go down, and this tab's going to come in. We got to make sure that everything's aligned properly. So you got to make sure your edges are aligned as possible, as you can see here. You know, tops on tops, sides on sides, and that way everything kind of glues down normally. And we're going to do that to all four corners. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold these guys down and we're going to glue this last flap. Once those are glued in, it's pretty much smooth sailing from there. These will glue down and it finishes our cube. As you can see there, we'll do this on this side, and these two will require glue on all three at the same time, and then we press it down and it finishes our cube. Make sure that these corners, when you glue them down, these little flaps are a little bit more elevated so that they have a little century. You can't push that much pressure on them because they'll just fold back. Just to try to have them a little bit elevated, and we'll do this one. Okay, glue on all three, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to push down, and we're going to gently make sure we're aligning everything. And we could push down here. All right, and that concludes the Hypercube build. You'll see that you'll have maybe one little corner that isn't as nice as the rest, and that will be your back corner, but you have 6 sides to choose from to which one's align, and which is going to be your hero side, which is the one you want to have always facing forward. You know, I like seeing it like this at a diagonal, and for your advanced users, I have something special for you. And what I did with this one is that I made a small Hypercube, and right before I placed it inside and right before I glued the last ones, I made sure that the Hypercube was in the middle. And so now I have a cube within a cube, just to give you some ideas that, you know, how you can have fun with it. This one, you can see some of the print lines, they're faint, but the difference between it's the difference between having print lines and non-print lines. But you'll see they're there, and I hope you have fun making these. It was fun designing them, and it's always nice to see a nice, crisp, sharp model. I have more free models and premium models available on my site. Just click on the link. Whenever you build these, I would love to see them. I'd love to showcase and show other people that, you know, I have people out there making them and they're enjoying their time. I'd love to get the feedback, and I hope to see you soon.